Ethan stood on the cliff's edge, rain streaking down his glasses as the flames below licked hungrily at twisted metal. The SUV had flipped 3 times before bursting into fire. A tire still rolled aimlessly downhill, catching sparks with every bounce. Inside the wreck, 2 bodies slumped together in a grotesque embrace, unrecognizable, charred, fused. The luxury leather of the back seat had melted into the bare ribs of the driver. He didn't blink. The GPS tracker on Willow's ankle bracelet, the same one he coded into the lining of her Chanel heels, had pinged its last signal at 4:32 a.m. Coordinates matched the base of this cliff. Ethan had been here since 3:50. Smoke coiled into the dawn sky, turning sunrise into a battlefield haze, but the music still played. Even through the crackling flames, he heard the faint, distorted jingle from the SUV's warped Bluetooth system. "Will you marry me today?" The wedding song ringtone she'd once set for him, the one she said was cute for a straight-laced IT nerd. He let it play. Ethan's right hand was gloved, not because of the weather, but to cover the half-healed burn scar in the web of his fingers, a scar she'd left him 3 years ago when she accidentally spilled the poisoned hangover soup meant to dull his reflexes. In his coat pocket, the USB drive blinked red. Every second of hotel surveillance footage, every audio file from the gym locker bug, every digital backup of forged inheritance forms. Willow's laughter overlapped with Cameron's whisper, "Just wait until the accident insurance clears, then it's widowhood, not divorce." They had plotted his death. He gave them theirs. Behind him, the rain was beginning to lighten, but he didn't move. His gaze stayed rooted on the melted bumper, where the license plate had curled like a tongue of metal shame. Willow once said she wanted to die glamorous, not old. She got one wish. In his other hand, he held the ceramic shard from the frame that used to hold their wedding photo. Her favorite picture, her lips pressed against his temple, her eyes locked on the lens, hiding secrets. He had shattered that frame the night she confessed she'd never loved him like she loved ambition. When he found the bruises on her collarbone and she said it was a gym injury, he didn't scream. He simply installed the second lens in her favorite perfume bottle. He knew Cameron's cologne now better than his own. The engine block exploded suddenly, a blast of flame shooting 20 feet high. The force made the air around Ethan ripple, but he didn't flinch. He'd known this exact outcome. He'd sketched it into code weeks ago, part of a simulation he wrote called, "If Betrayal Had a Loop." There would be no remains to identify, no clean lines between victim and monster, just ashes, like the hangover soup, like his affection, like the future they planned together on a beach she never bothered to book. He closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his lids, her voice echoed again, frustrated, amused, drunk on perfume and lust. "You're just an IT nerd, you wouldn't understand power." The wedding photographer didn't bother to take a second shot of Ethan's father. His frostbitten knuckles trembled as he extended the red envelope, damp at the corners from his cracked nails. The crimson paper looked almost out of place against the crystal-stemmed flutes and imported orchids. 8,888, the old man said proudly, his accent thick, every syllable wobbled by pride. A number for fortune. Nancy's mink coat brushed his wrist as she recoiled slightly, eyebrows arching over her Dior frames. "That's sweet," she murmured to the wedding planner. "He probably sold a buffalo." The guests laughed. Even the violinist choked a note. Ethan stood there in his too tight charcoal suit, a rental from a second-hand shop tucked between 2 laundromats. The stitching strained at his shoulders, but his posture never bent. He didn't look at Nancy, didn't look at the red envelope either, he looked only at Willow. And Willow, glowing in pearl tulle, lips parted in soft amusement, reached back and squeezed his hand under the table. Her fingers smelled faintly of Chanel hand cream and cold milk. He thought that meant she chose him. But the moment he first fell had been far earlier, years before, a busted server at 2:00 a.m., a rookie accountant squatting in front of the IT room, clutching a half-eaten egg sandwich with mayonnaise dripping down her thumb. Ethan had just spent 6 hours debugging a faulty back-end loop. She looked up at him like he was magic. "You saved the system?" she'd whispered. He nodded. She grinned and dug into her pocket. Underneath the receipt for a lip gloss tube, she slid over 2 IMAX movie tickets. Inception, 3D, Ethan blinked. "These are for tonight." "Yeah," she said. "I figured you don't sleep anyway." She was wrong. He'd never slept deeper than he did that night, sitting next to her, her fingers brushing the popcorn box, her lip gloss smeared at the corner of her mouth like a child who forgot to wipe. When she leaned her head on his shoulder mid-scene and whispered, "Don't spoil the ending, okay?" He promised, to himself, to everyone, he would never ruin her story, even if it meant erasing himself from it. Nancy had never liked him. From the start, she sniffed his name like it offended her nostrils. "Ethan," she once said during a Sunday brunch. "It sounds like a budget air fryer brand." She didn't hide her disdain, not when Ethan brought over a box of Dragonwell tea for Chinese New Year, not when he wore leather shoes polished so hard they reflected the chandelier, not even at the wedding. Nancy had taken one look at the fish Ethan's father brought in from their village, a silver-scaled, ice-packed croaker, and lifted it disdainfully with gold chopsticks. "A fish vendor wants to join our family?" she murmured to a nearby aunt. "Charming." That same night, she ordered the MC to ask Ethan to kneel for tea. "He likes being humble," she smiled. The whole room laughed again. Champagne sloshed into glasses like applause. Ethan didn't respond. He lowered his head and touched the rim of the cup. His father stood behind him, rubbing his hands nervously. The envelope he held had been tucked under the rice mat at home for 3 winters. Their village got internet just last year. Nancy leaned toward Willow. "At least he's obedient." Willow turned to Ethan, and she smiled. That's all it took. Ethan ignored the ache in his knee, he ignored the old man's damp collar, he ignored the sting behind his eyes. Because Willow was looking at him like he mattered, like he belonged here, among the rose-gold chandeliers and wine lists with 6-digit totals. She was the flame, he was the wire, and he didn't care if he burned. The honeymoon was quiet, no ocean views, just a 1-bedroom apartment Ethan had spent 3 years coding freelance gigs to afford. The windows fogged up with steam from instant ramen. Willow kissed him on the fire escape, wearing the same puffy pink hoodie from college. "I'll protect you from Mom's words," she whispered that night, curled up against him, her head tucked under his chin. "I know she can be sharp, but she'll change." Ethan didn't say anything, but in the darkness, he reached for her hand and pulled it over the scar on his palm, still healing from when he sliced it opening the package containing her engagement ring. She kissed the scar. He smiled, and tried not to remember the laughter in the wedding hall. The first bruise appeared just below Willow's collarbone, round, red, soft at the edges. Ethan noticed it when she leaned over to grab a jacket, the neckline of her tank top slipping just enough to reveal the mark. She saw his eyes catch it. "Yoga ball," she said quickly, adjusting her hoodie. "I slipped doing back bends." Ethan nodded. But the next day, another bruise bloomed on her hip. "You should tell your trainer to be more careful," he said. She laughed. "Cameron's a pro. It's not him, it's me. My body's clumsy." Clumsy, but every time she came back from the gym, her perfume had a hint of someone else's cologne. Not Ethan's, not even hers. A scent that clung stubbornly to the cuffs of her sleeves, like cedar smoke and sweat. Cameron. Ethan opened her gym bag one evening while she showered. Beneath the towel was a branded shaker bottle with Makoto Training Studio printed on the side, still half full of beige whey. Tucked under that, a crumpled receipt from the Golden Dragon Hotel, room 328. Date, 2 nights ago. He scanned it, sent it to himself, and carefully put everything back. That night, Willow didn't kiss him goodnight. Nancy arrived the next morning for breakfast. She strolled through the apartment like it was hers, brushing dust off the jade figurines Ethan's father had sent from home. "You know," she said casually over grapefruit, "you should put the house in both your names. Marriage is a partnership, and what if something happens to you?" Ethan stared at her. "Accidents don't come with warning signs," she added, biting into the fruit. "And those tech startups crash faster than Teslas these days." Willow stood at the stove, stirring eggs. She didn't say a word. 2 weeks later, Ethan checked the insurance portal. His life insurance beneficiary had changed. It no longer read spouse, Willow. It now read primary, Nancy Liu. The document was notarized. Uploaded. Time-stamped from the home IP. Ethan's hands trembled as he logged out. Later that night, he unscrewed the backplate of the smart TV. Behind the mesh, he installed a micro-listener chip, disguised as a Wi-Fi booster. One in the living room, one in the bedroom mirror, another embedded in the ceramic pot of her favorite orchid. The car's dashcam had already been upgraded last month, but he added a GPS module and a back-channel upload loop. Every spoken word would go straight to the cloud. He left her perfume bottle where it was, but slid a tiny lens into the cap. She loved spritzing it before leaving for the gym. 2 nights later, the mic in the living room picked up Cameron's voice. "Any news on the will?" he asked. Nancy replied, "She signed it. Idiot probably thinks it's just insurance cleanup. Once it processes, we stage the crash." Cameron laughed. "Same cliff as her dad? Classy." Ethan froze. Willow walked in on them mid-conversation. "What are you two whispering about?" she asked. "Nothing important, sweetie," Nancy purred. "Just tax planning." Ethan's monitor flickered as the audio synced. He clipped the segment and dropped it into a file labeled Kill Switch V3. But then something even deeper emerged. He traced a call from Nancy's phone to an unfamiliar number, pinged near a second gym, one she never mentioned. A gym Cameron also frequented. The GPS tagged them together on multiple nights. He retrieved hotel footage using a spoofed admin login, room 328, Willow obviously, but there was another camera, weeks earlier, same room, same perfume, only this time, it was Nancy and Cameron. The timestamp predated Willow's affair. Ethan sat still for 10 whole minutes. Then he opened the backup wedding drive, the one that stored all files from their reception day. Nancy smiling in her mink. Cameron offering to fix the AV glitch on the main projector. They had known each other longer than Willow ever suspected. He revisited the hospital file from Willow's childhood records, a single highlighted line, biological mother, deceased, 1996. Nancy had entered Willow's life in 1997, married into the Liu estate, took over guardianship. Ethan's finger hovered above the mouse as he scrolled to the notarized file Nancy had uploaded. It wasn't just insurance, it was a full asset succession plan, will, estate clause, and digital authorization key. The digital signature at the bottom was forged, layered into a document Willow never read. He stared at the last line of code, the execution block that finalized his own will. It was titled, George Liu Death Fund V2.docs. He hovered over the delete key. Then I changed the name. The paint on the living room wall had started to peel at the corner where the sunlight hit hardest. Ethan remembered choosing that shade of gray with Willow, spending an entire weekend arguing in the hardware store about whether it should be slate morning or charcoal rain. He let her win, he always did. The apartment wasn't just a home, it was his entire past compressed into square footage, his entire savings account, the money he got from selling off his startup's beta product before Series A, his first back-end contract. The 6-figure freelance project he completed during hospital shifts for his father's chemotherapy. He gave it all to buy that apartment. So Willow could wake up facing the sunrise, so she could say she had a view. But now all he saw was shadow. The urn was small, rough around the rim. It had once contained his father's ashes. Ethan had placed it on the altar shelf during Qingming Festival. He remembered the way Nancy had flicked her cigarette and let ash fall on the cloth beneath it. "Your father really got cremated in that ugly tin?" she sneered. "I guess he wouldn't have fit in anything fancier, short men, short boxes." Then she laughed, loud, drenched in Chanel, drunk on red wine and disrespect. Willow had smiled tightly. "Mom, stop." Nancy didn't. That night, Ethan backed up the funeral home surveillance footage, labeled it ashmemory.move. He encrypted it with his father's name as the password. Weeks later, Willow came home coughing, pale, in a silk robe, her voice raspy with fake illness. She nestled under the blanket and said her chest hurt. "Could you make soup?" she asked. "The way your mom used to." Ethan cooked it quietly, chicken bones, ginger, red dates, served it in her favorite blue and white bowl. She smiled as she took the spoon. "I still love you, you know. I just wish things were easier. If only you weren't always around." He didn't respond. That night, while she slept, he replayed the audio from the lapel mic sewn into the couch cushion. Her voice was clear. If only Ethan just died quietly. He kept that file, rewatched it for 3 nights, then labeled it, Wish Granted, MP4. The next time Willow offered him soup, it was her turn to serve. She placed it down with trembling hands, sitting too straight, watching him a little too hard. He stirred the bowl once, then took a sip. Cinnamon, faint metallic aftertaste, slight bitterness under the ginger. Tetrodotoxin, he'd smelled it once in a lab during a cybersecurity penetration test on illegal marketplaces, same scent. He drank the entire bowl, then smiled. She blinked. Feeling okay? Fine, he said. She left the kitchen looking rattled. Ethan went straight to the bathroom, slipped 2 activated charcoal tablets under his tongue, and spit into the sink. Later, he vomited everything into a sealed biohazard bag and stashed it in the freezer. Label, proof of intent. The next day, he began building. He modified the massage gun Cameron always used at the gym, replacing the internals with a capacitor salvaged from a defibrillator. He wired it to discharge after 20 minutes of sustained use, synchronized with VO2 max output on Cameron's smartwatch. He blended a microdose of tetrodotoxin into a new YSL Slim No. 21 lipstick, identical to Willow's favorite shade, just enough to cause paralysis when licked. He knew she would, she always did, absent-mindedly, after applying it. Then came the incense. He printed white phosphorus incense sticks, stored at 22 degrees C. But when the room hit 28 degrees C from underfloor heating, they'd ignite silently. He set them inside the ancestral hall, next to the photo of Nancy's late husband, the one she swore she loved until the very end, before collecting his pension payout. Every camera in the house was now synced to a cloud drive labeled Aftermath. He bought a fisheye lens for the bedroom, wired it through the ceiling vent, hid a microphone inside the thermostat, replaced the car's Bluetooth system with a frequency skimmer. Every step she took, every whisper, every moan, every lie, every plan, he recorded it all. At night, he didn't sleep, he coded in silence, writing scripts, audio triggers, deadman switches, GPS scramblers. By day, he limped, let his hands shake, feigned weakness, complained of headaches, told Nancy and Willow he'd been getting dizzy, that maybe he should update his will. Nancy nodded too quickly. Willow bit her lip. Cameron smiled. They thought they were winning, but they were only digging. Ethan stared at the glow of his laptop screen one night, a white cursor blinking on a page that looked like a last will and testament. He typed slowly, line by line, block by block. Above it, the code ran in silence. If condition, betrayal, equals true, then, execute hell. He smiled. I don't need to kill them, he whispered. Their greed will do it for me. It was supposed to be Cameron's last workout. Ethan had adjusted the resistor inside the spin bike to match Cameron's exact wattage output. Modified the massage gun with the capacitor from a scrapped defibrillator. He even swapped the gym's eucalyptus-scented towels with ones lightly dusted in conductive gel. Everything was calibrated. Precise. A perfect digital death, cardiac arrest with no trace. But that morning, Cameron didn't show. Gym attendance log, sick leave, personal reasons. Ethan watched the notification on his monitor flicker. An error in the plan, a delay, not a failure. He didn't flinch. Later that evening, Willow walked into the bedroom wearing a white slip. Her lips gleamed in candlelight, soft, glossy, seductive. She leaned against the doorframe and smiled. Do I look different tonight? Ethan's eyes locked on the YSL tube on the vanity. He'd replaced it 2 days ago, same shade, same texture, infused with a carefully titrated microdose of tetrodotoxin. She posed, blew a kiss, but didn't lick her lips, not once. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, quiet, watching him, like she knew. He stayed composed, reached for the glass of water, sipped, listened to the way her breathing didn't change. She'd either caught on, or wasn't ready. The next day, Nancy came into the garage wearing silk gloves and diamond studs. I'm taking the car, she announced. You're still visiting your mother's grave, right? Why not take the older one? Ethan nodded politely. Of course, take whatever you need. He watched her drive away in the brand new Mercedes, the one with tampered brake pads, a hidden thermal charge rigged to trigger on incline. But 20 minutes later, GPS pings revealed the car turning around. She'd gone to the dealership, swapped the car again, parked the rigged one back in the garage. She knew, not everything, but enough to spook her. Then watched the feed as she paced in her bedroom, phone pressed to her ear. "I don't trust him," she hissed. "I swear he's onto something." The screen split as another feed opened, Cameron's phone, intercepted through his cloud login. Cameron's voice, "He's weak, he wouldn't do anything." Nancy's reply was sharp, "Then why hasn't he died yet?" For the first time, Ethan saw fear in her eyes. He uploaded the first clip that night, a screenshot from the hotel room, Nancy adjusting Cameron's tie, lips brushing his ear. He printed it, folded it, slipped it under her pillow. No message, just the image. The next morning, she screamed. Willow found her in the hallway, shaking. "Someone's trying to blackmail me." Willow blinked. "Who?" Nancy stared at her. "You tell me." Willow shook her head. "Why would I?" That night, Ethan slid a USB into the kitchen drawer. No label, just a file. Autoshop tamper.mov. Nancy found it when looking for tea bags. The footage played automatically, Cameron pouring synthetic oil into the brake line, her voice in the background. "Make sure he burns this time." She didn't sleep that night. Neither did Willow. She stood outside Ethan's study for a long time, eyes unfocused, breathing shallow. "Ethan," she said softly, "do you ever think about what would happen if we just started over?" He looked up, deadpan. "You mean, if I had died?" Her face twitched. "No, I didn't mean it that way." "Yes, you did," he said quietly, and turned back to his monitor. The next wave began. Willow received an anonymous email, attached, her own voice, taken from the sofa mic. "If only Ethan just died, quietly." The subject line, "Wish still pending, you'll need a bigger prayer." She threw up in the sink. Nancy got an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside, a photocopy of her fake signature on Ethan's will. The handwriting analysis was already stamped and notarized. Nancy stared at the paper for 10 full minutes before screaming Willow's name. The apartment turned into a minefield of suspicion. Willow kept her door locked. Nancy unplugged every electronic device and refused to use the smart TV. Ethan installed 2 more cameras, one in the air purifier, one inside Nancy's antique vase. He tracked Nancy's phone again. A new GPS ping led him to an unfamiliar garage in the industrial district. Auto mods, low end, cash only. He watched through the skylight. Nancy was there, alone. No Cameron this time. She handed an envelope to the shop owner. "This one has to work," she said. "No games. I want the brakes done, the battery rerouted, and the fuel line cleaned. Make it look like he lost control." Ethan stared through the broken ventilation grate. So this was her last move. No Cameron, no charm, just desperation. She wanted him dead, again. He didn't move, just pulled out his phone, took a still shot of her handing over the envelope, and sent it to his private archive. Label, Nancy Final. That night, Nancy avoided looking him in the eye during dinner. Willow fidgeted with her fork, her YSL lipstick untouched on the table. The TV played a home renovation show on mute. Ethan watched them both, quiet, cold. Then whispered, just loud enough for himself. "You want me gone so badly, Nancy? Then I'll grant your wish, just not the way you want." The morning fog hung thick over Luoyang Mountain Road, each hairpin curve barely visible under the film of mist. Birds had stopped singing an hour ago. The world felt quiet, too quiet. Nancy's lipstick was flawless, even in the pale gray light. Cameron sat beside her, one hand lazily resting on the gearshift, the other scrolling through social media. She adjusted the rearview mirror and dabbed her lips again. The Mercedes purred under her, sleek and ready. Cameron yawned. "So he's really driving the old one?" Nancy didn't answer right away. She smiled at her reflection. "He's sentimental. He said it was his mother's favorite model." She pressed harder on the pedal. "Let him die wrapped in a memory." The road narrowed ahead, guardrails rusted at the bends. As they climbed, the engine started to grumble, subtle at first, then more urgent. The brake pedal stiffened under Nancy's heel. Cameron glanced at her. "Smells hot in here." Nancy's fingers whitened on the wheel, the dashboard lit up. Transmission fluid overheating, brake pressure low, a low hiss, like a snake in the chassis. She pressed the brakes. Nothing. Pressed harder. Nothing. The wheels started to shake violently, the scent of scorched oil clawed through the air vents. "Turn it off," Cameron shouted. "I can't," she screamed back, yanking the wheel to the right. The tires skidded, they passed the guardrail marking the overlook. Smoke poured from under the hood. Nancy tried to downshift, the gear stick jammed, she punched it, panicking. Then, boom, the Mercedes hit the guardrail head-on. There was a split-second pause, like the mountain itself was inhaling. Then flames erupted, orange, violent, devouring. The car flipped once, then again, and as it tumbled over the ledge, crashing onto the rocks below, a roar of fire consumed it whole. By the time the fire trucks arrived, there was nothing left but blackened steel and D2 fused corpses, locked in what looked like an embrace. Willow stood at the crash site in her beige trench coat, arms wrapped around herself. Her face was blank. Ethan stood behind her, hands in his pockets, calm, steady, watching. A paramedic gently touched Willow's shoulder. "We found something," he said. He held out a half-melted jade bangle, scorched red along its engraved edge. The engraving still visible, YTC. Willow took one look and crumpled to her knees. "No," she gasped. "Not them. Not together." The police captain lit a cigarette nearby. "Third luxury car fire this month," he muttered. "People think they're invincible behind those logos." Willow stared at the flames until the sun rose higher and erased their glow. Her shoulders trembled. Ethan stepped forward, draped a shawl over her shoulders, whispered near her ear, "At least now, you only have me." At the memorial, Ethan chose the charcoal gray suit Nancy once said made him look like a poor student trying to cosplay rich. He wore it deliberately. Willow clutched the urn in both hands, her knuckles white. She didn't look up when the priest offered prayers, didn't speak when the mourners offered platitudes. Later, at the crematorium, she pulled Ethan aside. "Why do I feel like this is my fault?" He brushed the ash off her sleeve with 2 fingers. "Because you thought they loved you." She hesitated. "But they did, didn't they?" Ethan tilted his head. "Did they?" At the police station, a detective slid across the dashcam footage recovered from the wreckage. They'd salvaged the memory card, half-melted, barely functioning. The video played on a cracked monitor. Cameron's voice, "Once he's gone, we'll finish her too." Nancy's reply was icy. "She's not even my real daughter. I raised her for the money. That girl means nothing." Willow flinched as if the words had slapped her across the face. The room fell silent. The detective tapped the screen. "You want to talk about this, Mrs. Liu?" Willow shook her head slowly. "No, I need air." She stumbled out of the room, shoes clicking unevenly on the tile floor. That night, she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Ethan's back as he typed. The glow of his monitor flickered against the window. He didn't turn around. "Ethan," she said softly. He paused. "Did you?" Her voice broke. "Did you know?" He finally turned his head, just enough for her to see his expression, calm, almost amused. "What would an IT nerd like me know?" Willow never asked why Ethan refused to file for divorce, not after the funeral, not after the dashcam footage surfaced, not even after she saw the ash-streaked urns of Nancy and Cameron tucked in a niche wall, one shelf apart, 2 names never meant to sit together. Instead, she stayed, like a stray dog that forgot it had once bitten. She cooked, cleaned, smiled too much. Her voice shook when she called him darling. She even tried to wear the lipstick again, her favorite YSL shade, the one Ethan replaced weeks ago. But by then, he had moved to subtler tools. That evening, she served chicken soup, extra broth, no scallions, just the way Ethan liked it. She waited at the table, chin resting on her hands. Ethan brought his own bowl, sprinkled a small sachet into hers. "More protein powder," he said, "for your health." She smiled, stirred the cloudy surface, and ate without question. The dust was gray, tasteless, infinitesimal. Just enough ash, scraped from Cameron's cremation tag, to dissolve into the broth. She slurped the last spoonful eagerly, as if hoping it would earn her forgiveness. Later that night, Ethan opened their old wedding video. A moment once sweet, his nervous vows, her blushing smile. He spliced it with footage from room 328. Cameron lifting her skirt, her moaning against the hotel window. The file played seamlessly. Vow, moan, ring exchange, gasp, first kiss, heavy breathing. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Ethan chartered a yacht. They dined under strings of fairy lights. A violinist played softly, a laptop sat propped near the edge of the boat, HDMI cable trailing toward a built-in projector. "Something special tonight," Ethan said. Willow clapped, eyes shining. "A surprise?" He nodded, pressed play. Within seconds, the first cut rolled, the hotel footage looped seamlessly into her wedding smile. Her fork slipped from her fingers. The violinist stopped playing. Willow turned white. "Ethan," she whispered, but he raised a finger. "Shh, the best part's coming." By the end of the reel, she vomited off the side of the boat. He didn't comfort her. A week later, she found her credit cards declined at every register. Her phone screen flickered with an email notification. Account closed, joint access revoked. The next day, her affair trended on local forums. "Mrs. Liu cheats, #trainer affair 30228, #mom and him too," clips from the hotel, stitched expertly, labeled with timestamps and IP addresses. Someone had even zoomed in on the bruise Cameron left on her waist. Her old friends blocked her numbers. Group chats went silent. By week 3, she was live streaming in tears, makeup streaked, asking anyone for help. "Please, if you know my husband, just tell him I'm sorry." The chat comment section was ruthless. "Didn't you fake his will? Girl, you ate your own man. Nice protein shake. Cameron flavor." She began losing hair, clumps, then strands. She dyed it black to hide the damage, then shaved half of it out of desperation. The next appointment she booked wasn't at a salon, it was at a psych clinic. The intake form listed insomnia, paranoia, hallucinations, self-harm tendencies. She blamed it on stress. "My mother died in a fire." The nurse raised an eyebrow. "And your trainer?" "Also burned," Willow whispered. At home, Ethan started locking his office again. Willow knocked every evening, sometimes with cookies, sometimes with tears, sometimes in just lingerie, like the early days. Once, she crawled into bed and slipped under his sheets, trying to kiss his neck. He didn't stop her, at first. But as she leaned down, he turned on the bedroom monitor. It cast a harsh white light from the vanity mirror. A camera inside recorded every motion. "Smile for the live stream," he said flatly. Willow froze. He let the video roll for X minutes, then transferred it directly to the cloud folder labeled Legacy. She stopped trying after that. For weeks, she wandered the apartment barefoot. She sang to herself, scratched her arms raw. She taped talismans to the walls, muttering that Cameron was watching her through the lights. One night, she threw herself into the tub fully clothed. Ethan found her curled there, whispering to her knees. "Make it stop," she begged. He didn't reply. One morning, she didn't come out of the bathroom. The tiles were smeared with dirt, handfuls from the succulent pot she once adored. Ethan waited 10 more hours. When he finally opened the door, she was slumped against the sink, lips blue. Her final message typed into the notes app of her phone. "Honey, look, I aged myself for you, no more youth left, just like you wanted." The attached image, a face aging simulation, wrinkled, bald, dead-eyed. The autopsy listed stress-induced immune collapse, malnutrition, hair loss, gastrointestinal breakdown. There was also an odd amount of organic soil in her stomach, mixed with crushed peony leaves. She'd eaten the roots from Ethan's garden. He didn't cry. He wore sunglasses to the funeral, brought no flowers, just a small pot in his hands. A plump Haworthia, the kind she used to overwater until the leaves shriveled. Now, it sat perfectly green. He placed it next to her urn, turned, walked away, and didn't look back. "She said I was just a straight-laced nerd," he murmured to no one. "But nerds write the system, and I rewrote her ending."